This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into the ATL Day Ones podcast with Jarvis and Tenitra. Woo! It is Hump Day Wednesday, and we are in this thing ready to roll. First of all, I want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and T your first listen of the day. And remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, give us a 5-star review. For those who are listening on the podcast, the audio platforms, I got my fist up. Give us a 5-star review, or else. I'm making threats today. That's just how I'm feeling, T. But you know, we got some good stuff on board. We're gonna start off with, did Matt Olson solidify himself as an Atlanta Brave? And as we continue our NFC South preview, we got the Saints today and the black and gold. Can Jameis Winston get it done? Just as simple as that. And last but not least, in for the culture, the Atlanta Hawks have been busy making moves and making trades and everything, but there was one particular trade that they may come out on the other side shining like gold. But before we get into all that, the Atlanta Braves got it done last night. They flipped the script. They beat the New York Mets 4-1, like the New York Mets beat them the previous game. So we're tied 1-1 in the series. And one of the things that I thought that just stood out to me is Spencer Strider just doing it again, but he just can't seem to get that run support like he needs. So Tyler Maxey ended up getting the win. But the best news is that it looked like the stars started to shine, and somebody was listening to the show last night. So hey, like I said, we don't like to take credit, but we don't take credit for that one, T.
Yeah, okay, we'll take a little credit for
just a little bit, yeah, just a little bit, yeah.
Able to do, but I want to just co-sign on Spencer Strider because, and I know we'll talk about him later, but yeah, Spencer Strider and really that bullpen as well. Just giving a shout out to Tyler Matzek, who continues to shine in his return from the
Colin McHugh too. Yes, smooth operator.
Yeah, he's been like the surprise because, like you said, low-key, we really don't talk about him very much. So you got to give him credit. And, of course, A.J. Minter for having a perfect ninth inning to just shut things down completely. So shout out to the A-team for getting it done and helping to even bail Spencer out a little bit there. But, yeah, Matt Olson, I mean, when you talk about a moment, I believe that was the moment for Matt Olson as a Brave because you go through 4 innings and it's this pitcher's duel, Strider versus Peterson, and it's looking like, okay, who's going to strike first? And it happened to be, for the Braves at least, Matt Olson. And we were just talking about this. Great that you're,
just yesterday.
Hey, that's awesome. But this is a team that's built on power based on home runs. They do the long ball. And so it's only right for him to finally say it with authority at the perfect time in that 5th inning last night. And you got the Braves hitting 136 home runs, just 10 less than the Yankees. So to see him finally join the home run party was critical. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that he literally solidified his place. He understood the assignment against the heated rivalry of the heated rival rather in the Mets, and now has put this team in position to get themselves potentially a series win and also to just be a half game back in the division.
It's definitely a half game back. And the one thing that stood out to me last night was a little kerfuffle that Ronald Acuna, I had to say that really slow so I won't mess up. Ronald Acuna had out in the outfield last night. We'll talk about whether or not that's concerning or where you should be concerned about that. But before we get there, T, tell the folks about BetOnline and what they got going on at betonline.net.
Yeah, betonline.net, that should be your number one source for all your betting needs, all your sports info. You can find out all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including Major League Baseball. Maybe you want to bet on who is going to win the NL East when it's all said and done. Or maybe you want to bet on the NBA because, hey, the fact is, you can get some good insight off the betting lines for wherever Donovan Mitchell will land. Right now, it looks like there are about 11 teams that are vying for him, but hey, maybe you can get some more info about it and make a wise choice on that. And of course, any over-unders on any of your favorite teams, BetOnline is where you can get all that info for sports wagering, live betting, esports, because that's a thing. That's a thing now, and scores. So it remains your best spot for all your scores, even podcasts on it. I think that's interesting as well, that they have some really cool podcasts to give you some insight if you are new to betting. So fast way, easy way to check on all of this information, even niche sports like MMA, boxing, golf. So head to the website today. You can use any connected device that you have to learn more about trends in action. And of course, for us as sportscaster, that's a critical part for us to just watch and find the trends. So BetOnline, that's where you should start. BetOnline.net.
BetOnline.net is the place to be. Now, we talked about, obviously Ronald Acuna coming off an injury, and we can see there have been moments throughout this season, T, that he's kind of pulled up on a ball that he probably normally would have dove for, or he kind of let a ball lands in front of him, like last night. He had the ball kind of misplayed it, kind of didn't judge it quite right, and then the ball was able to get past him. And obviously, Lindor was able to, get to third base, and get a triple. So I think I don't know about you, but I think that's something that Acuna just going to have to play through. I'm not too concerned, but I think it's just a matter of him kind of playing through it in his head, or getting through it in his head.
Yeah.
And, I think it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. So I don't think there should be that much concern when it comes to these little defensive letdowns from time to time.
Yeah, I would go on the side of little concern as well, and not a major concern, because again, you look at last week where he dove for a ball and it's like, yeah, you kind of didn't have to do that. But then again, Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be aggressive with just about everything he does. But then there have been moments too that have been questionable in these last couple of weeks where he's been a little timid, and that's kind of not like him. So the timidity on one hand, but then sometimes the over aggressiveness on the other. I agree with you. I believe that probably speaks more to a mental piece there than anything. And last night, yes, got away with making a bad decision, because again, like you said, Lindor was able to get 2 extra bases out of it, but thankfully it didn't cost the Braves any runs. But again, you got to remember that you've got good infielders around you. So take advantage of the fact that you've got good teammates around you to be able to pick up the slack when maybe you can't get there. Or also, you got to remember as well, while I'm a little bit concerned about that, I agree that it's not maybe physical, it's maybe more mental, because he still has 17 stolen bases. So that to me tells me that the physical is
speed is there, yeah.
Yeah, the speed is still there, so he's good to go as far as his legs are going for him. And like we talked about last night, he's entering the home run derby. Most people are excited about that. And the fact of the matter is, the only thing you don't want him to do is have a drop off after the derby. But I think that speaks positively about the fact that he believes that his physical is ready for something even on that scale.
No doubt about it. And another guy who is physically imposing and on the mound, and we throwing all the guys. We talked about Spencer Strider, and just I don't know about you, T, but I just think that when you have a guy like that in your rotation who shows emotion, because most pitchers are kind of guys kind of reserved, to kind of like melancholy, kind of straight and narrow. Yeah, indeed. But Spencer Strider is not that. He is a guy who shows emotion, and he's kind of like a Max Scherzer type guy. We talked about emotion that he showed, in the bullpen, or in the dugout, excuse me, in game 1, and kind of that was kind of the momentum that teams need to get up for these type of games, because the season is so long. So I think that the Braves got him a nice little dog in him, sitting up in that bullpen, and I just think it's going to benefit them greatly going down the stretch when you have those low moments, because these guys there's some veterans here, but I think that when you have a young pup like Strider doing really well, and he's bringing some of that emotion, I think the Braves got something really good in the folk hero himself.
Yes. Yeah. The stash, we always talk about how any of our local teams, who's that dog? Who's going to be that guy that has the edge, that gives you a little extra oomph when you need it? And nothing against Max Fried. I mean, if that's your personality to just be melancholy or even keeled, do you, because it's worked for you. But Spencer Strider just lays it all out there. And I feel like, wow, Ronald Acuna's got some edge to him. That's a good look. And we like this edge that he brings to the table too, because anytime you have that, and especially to see that the passion and the game, they're actually starting to catch up to one another. Like you said, down the stretch, that is what you love to see. And even now, just to help to be a part of getting them back, the Braves back on track. I love it. I love it.
No doubt about it. Speaking of getting back on track, how about the Falcons getting to the quarterback, getting some sacks this year? And I think that there's no doubt in my mind that Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith and said, you know what, they got with Dean Pease. Like, you know what, we're going to help you out this year, Mr. Pease. We're going to draft D'Angelo Malone. We're going to draft Arnold Ebiketie. We're going to bring in Lorenzo Carter. We're going to bring back Adio Gonzalez, and say that fast 3 times. We're going to expect some rookie, some second-year jumps and some guys that are put their hands in the dirt and be able to rush the passer. Obviously, 18 sacks is a number that'll be forever embedded in our minds until they do better. And I think, though, T, one of the things that I think about from last year to this year, as far as making that transition and going into Dean Pease' second year, I believe that with those young guys that I mentioned and with some of those veteran guys coming back and the guys that they brought in, I think that they will be better. I think it's just a matter of how much better will they be as they come going into the 2022 season.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think the young guys, because when I was thinking about the question that you had posed on maybe who's going to have the most sacks in 2022, I was like, wow, it's kind of a toss-up when we look at the young pups. And then, like you said, got a different thought process on the veterans. But the younger guys, I was like, wow, that could be AK, but that could be Ade. It just really depends on how Dean Pease chooses to use them, who's going to actually get the most reps, if you will, or the most snaps, if you will, at that will linebacker position. And that is something that you and I may be able to see some telltale signs in training camp as well as the preseason, because I have a sneaking suspicion that Arthur Smith is going to utilize players much more in the preseason to see exactly what he's going to have to work with on week 1. So I kind of am interested to see how that particular competition plays, because you spoke with Ade earlier a couple of weeks ago when there was open practice at the Benz, and you gave him some scenarios, and you just talked about the fact that his mindset going into this second season speaks volumes. But we also talked to AK about his thought process and how he sees, and he's like chomping at the bit to be able to work in the Dean Pease defense. So I think the competition for the Falcons bodes well.
It's gonna be a big one. And I have one guy that came to mind immediately, and that's Lorenzo Carter. Lorenzo Carter jumps to mind immediately because of the streak that he went on. I think he had 5 sacks in the last 4 games last year for the New York Giants, and I think he's going to continue that. I think he's going to be put in situations to be able to rush the passer quite a bit. So just from a veteran standpoint, that's the easy answer, right? But I'm gonna give you a sleeper. I'm gonna give you a name that most people probably wouldn't pick this guy, but I'm gonna go with him because I think it's something in him. I did my research, T, and I kind of talked to some guys that coached him in high school, and I think D'Angelo Malone. Don't be surprised if D'Angelo Malone becomes the sack leader for this team, because he is a guy that he's gonna be put in mostly specific situations. Meaning what? All right, Jarvis. Not necessarily being on there in first and second down. He's going to be put in there on third and long situations where they are going to pass. And I think that when you get young guys in those type of situations where they don't have to think, I think that's where those guys are going to be the most productive. And I think he's going to be put in that situation more often than I think Arnold Ebiketie. I think Arnold Ebiketie is going to get some first and second down reps because, he's a second round guy, and I think he has that. He's pretty solid against the run as well. So I think we're going to see D'Angelo Malone get that put into those situations, because I think that's my sleeper guy that I really feel that more than likely he'll be in the conversation for the sack leader.
Now, I'll shock you with a dark horse, because we gave our upfront selections for sack leaders from the young guys and from the veterans, right? And you just gave a dark horse from our young core, right? Let me give you a dark horse for the Falcons veteran core, Grady Jarrett. And the reason I say Grady, there you go, because everybody is forgetting that Grady averaged nearly 6 sacks per season from 2018 to 2020. Last year, okay, fine, it was an off year, but it was also a year where maybe he arguably had the least talented cast around him, no offense. And I'm talking about that whole defense, right? And it was year 1 under Dean Pease. This is year 2. And he has, we agree, better talent overall around him. So even if he doesn't end up with the highest total of sacks, I feel like he's going to be right there, because the other piece is this: has Grady not always had a chip on his shoulder and something to prove? Brady's not coming. He's not having two subpar years. I don't see it. So that's going to be my dark horse on the veteran side.
No doubt about it. Now, speaking of something of people who somebody got something to prove, Jameis Winston probably is the picture right there in the Western Dictionary as far as who has to prove something. So we'll go around the NFC South next. We'll talk to our guy Ross Jackson, part of Locked On Saints, to see if Jameis Winston has what it takes to be the starter this year, and whether or not the Falcons going to kick they behind. That's next on Locked On Sports Atlanta. It's ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and T.